A very good evening. We're coming to you live from the Newsfirst studios here in Colombo with primetime news. I'm Mahina Bongzo.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Shahin Jarampati. Let's start off with a look at tonight's headlines.
3 new judges appointed to the Supreme Court. Will malaria raise its head in the country again? President's personal secretary Janaka Ranawaka indicted for acquiring information illegally. $400 million from India to strengthen reserves. What does Mahinda fear most?
Three new Supreme Court judges and a new judge of the Court of Appeal were sworn in before President Maithripala Sirisena at the Presidential Secretariat today.
The President of the Court of Appeal, Pirthi Padman Surasena, has been elevated as a judge of the Supreme Court. Court of Appeal judges S. Ture Raja and EAGR Amarasekara were also sworn in as judges of the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, High Court Judge K.P. Fernando was sworn in as a new judge of the Court of Appeal. Meanwhile, former head of the 53rd Battalion of the Sri Lanka Army, Shavendra Silva, was appointed as the new Chief of Staff of the Sri Lanka Army. He previously served as the Executive General of the Army Headquarters. He also served in the capacity of the head of the Gajabah Regiment.
The newly appointed governor of the Western Province, Azad Saleh, assumed duties in his new role today.
Saleh assumed duties as the 8th governor of the Western Province after receiving multi-religious blessings. Governor Saleh had been serving as a member of the Colombo Municipal Council till the 4th of January and also has experience as a provincial councillor. Saleh, who was a deputy mayor and an acting mayor of the CMC in the past, was also a central provincial councillor. A number of parliamentarians and members of provincial councils were present when he assumed duties today.
Congratulations.
I have been someone who has always fought for truth and justice, and no matter what, I am ready to join hands with you all to achieve that. We will not do politics in this office of the governor. People can meet me and I will show no difference based on party, colour or race. I would like to say that everyone coming into this office will be served. The position of governor holds a special place in the political hierarchy of this country. The governor comes after the president, prime minister, speaker, chief justice, former president and the member of cabinet in the order of hierarchy.
Also making headlines this evening, Sri Lanka was successful in eradicating malaria, which was once an epidemic in the country in 2016. However, after only 2 years of being declared free from malaria, the disease has begun raising its head in the country again.
2 cases of malaria were reported from Siambalandua recently. One of the patients was an Indian national who was working at a construction site of a private sugar factory in Adimale, Siambalandua. The other patient, a Sri Lankan national, is a 45-year-old resident of Migoda working at the same sugar factory. Physicians suspect that the Sri Lankan had contracted the disease from the aforementioned Indian national. Residents also allege the disease has been spread by Indian labourers.
Malaria me patangatta pidese sampurna vinasera පත් කරනවා. Malaria මෙහෙ තිබුණ නැහැ. දැන් මේ ඉන්දියන් කට්ටිය ඇවිල්ලා ඒගොල්ලන්ගෙන් දාම්බ වෙලා තින්නේ. අපේ ගෙවල් වලට ටිකක් ගැව්වා මේක තුරන් කරපු මේ වෛරසය මුළු පළාතටම බෝ වෙලා තින්නේ. මේක තිබිච්ච නැති ලෙඩක් ලංකාවේ. Malaria වල බෙහෙත් ගැව්වා. මේ Indian company කියනවානේ මේ පාම් එකකින් ඉන්දියාවේ මිනිස්සු ඇවිල්ලා ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ බෝවිලා තමයි දැන් මේ අපේ සිංහල මිනිස්සුන්ටත් මේ හැදිලා තියෙනවා.
They conducted a blood test and injected medicine claiming a person had malaria. Houses were provided with nets. There is no way malaria could have spread apart from the Indians.
මේ මැලේරියාව තියෙනවා නම් ඒ කට්ටියකින් තමයි එන්න ඕන. වෙන එන්න ක්‍රමයක් තිබුණ නැහැ නේ කලින්.
Director of the National Malaria Prevention Unit says blood samples of those who have been diagnosed with malaria in the Siambalandua area have been sent to the National Research Agency in Singapore in order to ascertain whether or not the patients have contracted the disease in Sri Lanka. A person contracts malaria through the sting of an infective female Anopheles mosquito. The malaria parasite then enters the bloodstream. The disease spreads when an infective mosquito stings a healthy individual or when a non-infective mosquito stings an infected individual, and as a result, the parasite enters. 36 cases of malaria were recorded in 2016, which was the year Sri Lanka eradicated the disease. While 57 cases of malaria were recorded in 2017, 48 cases were recorded in 2018. Included in these are Sri Lankans who had contracted the disease while in foreign countries and foreign visitors. Yearly, around 400,000 malaria-related deaths are reported worldwide.
Malaria is a disease which created a negative socio-economic impact on our country. It is a very tedious task to eradicate such a species. Even though Sri Lanka is free of this parasite, we have been informed that this disease is being brought to Sri Lanka through foreign tourists and also Sri Lankans arriving in the island from other countries. Usually in 1 year, around 50 cases are revealed. Most cases of malaria are recorded from people who arrive in the country from abroad. Through this, there is a risk of this disease being spread in the country again.
මේ මැලේරියා රෝගය නැවත ලංකාවට ගෙන එන බව අපිට වාර්තා වෙනවා. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් වර්ෂයකට 50ක් පමණ රෝගීන්.
Malaria is a disease which affects the entire body. It mainly affects the blood circulatory system, the liver and the nervous system. As a result, death also may occur. Several ailments persist for months and eventually the ability of the infected person to even complete his day-to-day activities becomes harder. Therefore, malaria is a very dangerous disease.
අවදානම නොඅඩුවම තියෙනවා.
The draft bill of the Chemical Weapons Convention Act was taken up for debate in Parliament today.
රසායනික අවි කියන්නේ ඇත්තම මේ කර්මාන්ත විෂයක් නෙවෙයි. ඒක ජාතික ආරක්ෂාවට ගොඩක්.
Chemical weapons are not an industrial issue. It is an issue concerning the national safety of our country. So I asked the Honourable President and the Defence Secretary at the time to put this subject under the Ministry of Defence. That is why this amendment has been submitted.
කර්මාන්ත අමාත්‍යවරයාට අයත් විෂයක් නෙවෙයි මේක ආරක්ෂක අමාත්‍යාංශයට අයත් විෂයක් හැටියට ඒ නිසා මේ සංශෝධනය ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙනවා.
ලංකාවේ මූදු සීමාව ඇතුළතට එනවා යුද නැව. මෑතකදී ආවා ඇමරිකානු යුද නැවක් තවත්.
A number of ships come to the waters in Sri Lanka, including an American vessel that came recently. According to the papers, around 400 vessels had come in recent times. Warships are used to do war exercises, and ships like Johnstonin are those with missile launching capabilities as well. Now, these kind of ships are going to come into Sri Lanka to make a hub. What kind of hub, you ask? One that is a supply center for the Navy. America is infamous for shamelessly using chemical weapons in their efforts. We tried to get information regarding this from the government. We reached out to the Prime Minister, but I am yet to receive a response from the Office of the Prime Minister.
අපි ආණ්ඩුවෙන් අහලා දැනගන්න උත්සාහ කරා මම ඊ අගමැතිතුමාට ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඇහුවා. ඉතින් අගමැතිතුමා කාර්යාලයෙන් මට නම් පිළිතුරක් ආවේ නැහැ.
ඇමරිකා එක්සත් ජනපද ආණ්ඩුවට නිල වශයෙන් අවස්ථාවක් ලැබුණා. 2007 ජූලි 7 වෙනිදා ශ්‍රී ලංකා ආණ්ඩුව සහ ඇමරිකා එක්සත් ජනපද ආණ්ඩුව අතර අත්සන් කරපු.
The American government was officially given permission by the AXA Defence Agreement signed on the 7th of July 2007 to enter the waters and the skies above Sri Lanka without any problem. The representative who signed on behalf of the United States of America was Robert O. Blake, an American citizen. The man who signed on behalf of Sri Lanka, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, was also an American citizen and continues to be. So we must find out whether those vessels entered our territories within the framework of this agreement or not. The Defence Minister must provide explanations for this.
අපි හොයා බලන්න ඕනකම තිබෙනවා මේ ඇමරිකානු යුද නැව් අපේ රටට අපේ මුහුදු කලාපයට ඇතුළත් උනේ ඒ ගිවිසුමේ වගන්ති පාවිච්චි කරලාද කියන එක. එහෙනම් ඒකට මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ආරක්ෂක ඇමතිවරු උත්තරයක් දෙන්න ඕනේ.
MP Arundika Fernando has issued an apology for sitting on the Speaker's seat during the tensions that ensued within the parliamentary chambers.
We consider the gallery of the Speaker as the altar. The people who come to the Speaker's gallery cannot even clap. Parliamentary officials asked them not to even speak. But ambassadors who came to the country under diplomatic privileges clapped in the gallery, enjoying these diplomatic privileges.
එතකොට ඒ තානාපති වරපසල් භුක්ති විඳින්නේ.
ඕ සත්තු අත්තකට ගියාම සත්තු ඇසිරෙනවා දැක්කම ෆොටෝ ගහනවා. ඕ මොකද එදා තිබුණේ ඇත්තටම සත්තු අත්තක්.
When you go to a zoo and see the animals there, you take pictures. On that day, this was a zoo. There were chimpanzees, gorillas, tigers, and there were bears. When the monkeys were dancing, the ambassadors clapped. There is a fake speaker who sat on the seat of the speaker. It even made him uncomfortable.
පුටුවේ වාඩි වෙච්ච අර බොරු කතානායකතුමාත් ඉන්නවා. එතුමාවත් අපහසුතාවයටපත් වුණා. බොරු කතානායකතුමා. හොර කතානායකතුමා. මම පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රීවරයෙක් හැටියට පෞද්ගලිකව මගේ.
As a parliamentarian, I extend my personal apologies for sitting on the seat of the Speaker. It was due to the action of the Speaker following the request to take action against the two people who carried a knife into Parliament that our group was angered. At that time, we did not sit on that seat when the mace was placed, but we wanted to show our opposition against the actions of the Speaker. But if there was any incident there, I apologize from the entire Parliament. But while I was seated on that seat, I saw the manner in which the foreign ambassadors were behaving.
හැබැයි මම ඔය ආසනේ ඉන්නකොට මම දැක්කා විදේශ තානාපතිවරු ඇවිල්ලා සමහරක් වෙලාවට ඒ අයගේ හැසිරීම අපි දැක්කා.
The Reserve Bank of India has agreed to provide $400 million to the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under its SARC swap facility, which will boost the reserves in the country.
The central bank in a statement said that they have also requested a further bilateral swap arrangement of $1 billion between the Reserve Bank of India and the CBSL, which is under consideration. The statement added, quote, "The RBI's very rapid and timely assistance will serve to boost investor confidence by supporting Sri Lanka to maintain an adequate level of external reserves while accommodating outflows related to imports, debt servicing and, if necessary, support for the currency to avoid disorderly adjustment," unquote. With the end of the delays related to the political development in the country, the government of Sri Lanka and the CBSL have also already revived action to issue international sovereign bonds, obtain term loans and negotiate credit lines through the state banks on behalf of the government. Meanwhile, Minister of Finance and Mass Media Mangala Samaravira will leave for Washington on the 11th of January to get the IMF External Fund facility back on track. Issuing a release, the Minister of Finance says the minister will be meeting with the Managing Director Christine Lagarde, Deputy Managing Director Mitsuhiro Furusawa, Director of the Asia Pacific Department Shanyong Rhee, Team Leader Manuel Goretti and other members of the IMF Sri Lanka team. Minister Samaravira is expected to signal the government's intention to continue with IMF reform programs. A key objective will be to negotiate the trajectory of the continued fiscal consolidation while accommodating policies to support growth and strengthen the social safety net. The Finance Minister delegation to the IMF will include the Governor of the Central Bank, Secretary to the Treasury and other key officials of the Central Bank and the Treasury. Also on Twitter, the Minister of Finance said the Cabinet of Ministers has approved a number of changes to the Inland Revenue Act. One tweet adds, foreign earnings remitted to Sri Lanka through banks on or after the 15th of November 2018 have been exempted from income tax. Further, taxation of interest income of senior citizens and NRFC and RFC account holders will also be reduced. According to the appropriations bill that was presented to the Cabinet, 2.2 trillion rupees of the government expenditure has been allocated for debt servicing. The Finance Ministry said that this is the highest debt repayment done by a government for a single year in the history of the country.
The government's objective is to increase government income to 15% as a percentage of the GDP in 2019. Minister of Finance and Mass Media Mangala Samaravira said that the government is planning to increase state revenue by 7% to 2.39 trillion rupees this year. Analysts say that due to the accumulated debt during the previous years, debt servicing in the coming years are likely to be higher. They say that 95% of state revenue will be used for debt servicing this year.
The number one problem is the government expenditure is high. So what you have to do is you have to limit the size of the government. To do that, you have to first take care of the state-owned enterprises. They are massively loss-making, and also we have about 1.5 million state workers. They are also adding a massive recurrent expenditure on our balance sheet. On the other hand, to increase the efficiency of the economy, we have to focus on tourism. When you have more income, people will pay more taxes, and that's how you can increase the revenue of the government. We have to provide focus on the exports, because exports is a critical area of Sri Lanka. Exports are not performing as we expect. On the third point is the foreign direct investment. To do foreign direct investment, that means the foreigners and the local people, basically the foreigners have to come and invest their money in Sri Lanka. To do that, you have to have a proper business environment.
Opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa today released a statement to the media marking the 4th year since the fall of his government following the presidential elections of 2015. Now, in the statement, the opposition leader brought to light 3 major concerns he has for the country surrounding the economy, the breakdown of the governmental mechanism and the proposed new constitution.
In a letter, the opposition leader highlights that the economy is in peril due to the mismanagement of the government. He stated that the United National Party's claim that they must borrow further to service debt is inaccurate and that the UNP has added 50% of the total debt onto the borrowings of his government. He further added that his government had to manage the economy in a period during which they faced a war on terrorism and a mass global economic crisis in 2008, issues that present governments do not have to face. The opposition leader also sheds light on the potential breakdown of the governance system due to the 19th Amendment. He states that the amendment bars the president from dissolving parliament for 4.5 years, even if the budget is defeated, and it puts stability at risk, even in cases where there is a rift within the government. The opposition leader also states that another fear is posed by the proposed new constitution. He adds that through this draft constitution, the government seeks to divide the country into 9 semi-independent federal units, and that the move will weaken the central government while also giving rise to 9 independent police commissions. Finally, he adds that in the face of all this, that he wishes to draw the attention of the people to the fact that the only political force capable of preventing these dangers from becoming a reality is the opposition alliance that he leads, which has an established track record of having overcome even challenges deemed impossible.
Indictments were read out in the presence of Colombo High Court Judge Manjula Tilakaratne against Janaka Ranawaka, a private secretary to the president.
3 indictments were filed against Ranawaka, which include the unauthorized access to the computer system of then Deputy Mayor of Kotte, Attorney at Law Madhura Vitanage, when Ranawaka was the Mayor of Kotte. Janaka Ranawaka and the person in charge of the computer system, Priyantha Valave, pleaded not guilty in court today. The Colombo High Court decided to commence the trial on the 28th of January.
We're following up on a story that made it into the headlines yesterday. An investigation has been launched into the fire that erupted at a 4-storied building in Yatinuwara, Kandy yesterday. According to police, samples of the charred property were directed to the government analyst.
S. Ramaraj and his family were in the 4-storied building at the time the fire erupted. While a large group gathered to assist him in saving his family, he had to throw his 3 children from the 4th floor of the building to save them from the fire. First, he threw his youngest son, aged 3.5 years, followed by his sons aged 7 and 8. His wife slipped from his grasp while he was attempting to lower her to safety, but she fell into the safe hands of the group that gathered to help him. The Newsfirst reporter who visited the scene today met a group who had helped this brave man save his family. We all got together and told him to throw them down one by one and save them. I was the one who caught the first child. There was no bedsheet at that time. I caught him with my hands. His leg hit me on my chest at the time and I couldn't breathe for a while. We saved the children somehow. By the grace of God, we saved them. I can't explain the feeling. There were about 50 to 60 people there. I don't know them all by name. All of them were people on their way to work. Ramaraj, who is still receiving treatment in hospital, spoke to the people who helped him save his life as well as his family. They are my gods. I saw my gods yesterday. They caught all of my family members without even leaving a scratch on one of them. Everyone who were there, I don't know what racial differences they had, but they are all gods to me. If I am to worship my gods, I should go to them and worship and thank each and every one of them.
Moving on to more local news, Venerable Athurali Ratanathero convened a media briefing in Colombo today. Venerable Athurali Ratanathero explained matters pertaining to the acquisition of a floating liquefied natural gas storage platform.
Firstly, I question whether cabinet approval was received to purchase the floating liquefied natural gas storage platform. We are not aware of such an approval. Amid all of this, the Ceylon Electricity Board is to present a tender by the end of this month with regard to this storage platform. The Swiss challenge policy is designed to benefit the investors who received this tender. This tender process is aimed at supplying gas to infrastructure facilities. The ulterior motive of this tender process is to keep a commission and give a portion of it to the foreign company. The lifespan of this ship is 20 years. This storage platform is 4 times of our country's gas requirement. Why did they purchase such a large platform? There is some ulterior motive behind this matter.
Another individual was killed after being attacked by a wild elephant in the Maha-Ara area in Suryavava recently, reflecting the severity of the human-elephant conflict that prevails in the Suryavava area.
On the night of the 6th of January this year, an individual who was farming in the Madunagala area in Suryavava Hambantota was killed by a wild elephant. The victim was a 54-year-old father of 4. Venerable Battara Mulle Silaratana Thero and Deputy Minister Palita Tevara Peruma paid their final respects to the deceased person today. Subsequently, Deputy Minister Tevara Peruma visited several areas which are prone to attacks by wild elephants.
The locals in this village live in fear. The country faced a war of 3 decades. However, now there are bigger problems in Suryavava Hambantota, and that is a human-elephant conflict. Our minister said 100,000 bullets to use against elephants have been ordered. However, the villagers will not receive these bullets. Businessmen are having plant and cultivations in lands in which elephants roam freely. These children have lost their father. They will only receive 500,000 rupees as compensation for his death. Is that sufficient for them to live by? But when I was the Deputy Minister of Wildlife during divisional tours, my minister spent 500,000 rupees for a night's hotel accommodation. Politicians must open their eyes and look into these matters. However, those who do open their eyes are called drunkards. The executive must take action against this wildlife issue. This issue must be resolved. I did not attack him as yet. So far, I have used mild weapons to attack, but I have in my possession heavy weaponry as well. This issue has been communicated to the Prime Minister and he requested us to put a pause to this rift. However, I will reveal the wrongdoings of Sarath Fonseca. I will not cover them. Everyone must accept the claim for this death. This family is given 500,000 rupees, but he spends the same amount for 1 day's accommodation. This is unfair.
The human-elephant conflict prevailing in the Suryavava area has been reported by Newsfirst on several occasions. The villagers we met in the Valsapogala area in Suryavava are not the only ones who spend their nights in such a manner. Locals in several other villages face the same plight. The reason for the surge in attacks by wild elephants in the Suryavava area is a consequence of mass-scale quarrying and plantain cultivation that takes place in the middle of a secured zone. This is a well-known fact among those who are aware of the truth. Even though these issues have been brought to the attention of the public eye during several instances, it is unfortunate to see no solution. Sri Lankan Airlines had made overpayments of approximately $1.1 million between the years 2014 to 2017. Sanjeeva Kurupu of the Components Management Section revealed this at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry on Irregularities at Sri Lankan Airlines, Sri Lankan Catering and Mihin Lanka today.
Testifying at the commission today, Sanjeeva Kurupu stated that Sri Lankan had delayed to submit 15 invoices to Lufthansa Airlines, resulting in an overpayment of $1.1 million between the years 2014 and 2017. These payments were made as a part of the components agreement Sri Lankan had with Lufthansa Airlines and were discovered during an audit investigation in 2016. It was also revealed that in 2015, the corresponding team of Lufthansa Airlines, based in India, Germany and the US, came to Sri Lanka for further negotiations regarding this matter. Senior State Counsel Fazli Razik, who was leading today's evidence, stated that the overpayment of $1.1 million was used as a bargaining tool by Lufthansa to enter into further contracts with Sri Lankan Airlines. Sanjeeva Kurupu further stated that negotiations with Lufthansa to waive off the overpayment of $1.1 million are still underway.
A forum was held yesterday to mark the 10th death anniversary of Sunday Leader founder and editor-in-chief Lasantha Wickramatunge.
This year's memorial also featured a tribute to other journalists who were slain in the line of duty.
I couldn't believe the fact that, there's always this criticism of Lasantha that he was a political animal and he got his journalists to write whatever he wanted, and his critics have always thrown that at him. But in my experience, he never touched a copy that I wrote. He never sought to change it. He never sought to stifle my freedom in any way. He completely fostered independent thinking and the freedom of his writers. It's kind of remarkable that somehow those values that Lufthansa stood for, I think, against all odds and recklessly so, he has somehow managed to inculcate in each and every one of us.
Minister of Telecommunication, Foreign Employment and Sports, Harin Fernando, says that attempts are being made to formulate a new administrative mechanism for Sri Lanka cricket. He made the statement speaking on the Pathikada program aired on our sister channel Sirasa TV this morning. Former Sri Lankan Test cricket captain Bandula Warnapura also joined the program.
A lot of talented players have left the country. If they can't get into the A team or the emerging team, they emigrate to Australia or England.
We saw this downfall over a number of years. This downfall was not something that happened recently. The main issue I see here is the fact that there is no quality in the domestic tournaments. Not only is there no quality, the players in the national squad don't play in these tournaments. But I believe that should be the trial. I believe that we must first find the right members for the team that can play together. I don't think we need to mention names. This is a country with the best cricket players in the world. We can bring this team to a good position if the players come to a consensus that they are playing for the country and not simply for themselves. The issue is not among the main people. There are a group of catchers who come with them. If the minister can stop that. And the second issue is, there generally should be a plan for the staff of the Board of Control. This includes how their payments are made and so on. As far as I know, there is no such plan within the Board of Control. I also believe that the number of clubs are too much. There are 142 votes for the cricket elections. There are only 9 votes in Australia and 18 in England. This will show what big of a joke this has become. At present, there is no alternative. We must go for an election. But we will be attempting to join hands with some clean people like Bandula Warnapura and Roshan Mahanama and create a new system. If the upper tier is not fixed, the lower tier cannot be fixed as well. If we fix the top and show them that this is clean, the boys at the lower tier will also become clean.
And that is a wrap of Primetime News. Thank you very much for watching. I am Shahin Jurangpati.
And I am Mahina Bongzo. Good night.